Welcome back to Liberal Breakdown. Folks, I'm honestly livid right now. The disastrous consequences of Trump's tariff policies are coming home to roost, and it's the working people, the middle class, and even global markets that are paying the price. That's crazy. Let's break this down. So China has slapped a 34% tariff on U.S. goods, and guess what? The stock market is tumbling. The Dow Jones just lost over 2,200 points, and the S&P 500 isn't looking much better. Why? Because Trump's reckless trade war is backfiring in the worst way possible. This is exactly what we warned about. People losing their jobs, industries collapsing, and the cost of goods skyrocketing. And for what? To satisfy Trump's fragile ego and misguided need for reciprocity in trade? This isn't just hurting farmers who depend on selling crops to China. It's hurting every single one of us who are seeing our retirement accounts tank and the economy stall. China's retaliatory tariffs aren't just symbolic. We're seeing the effects on everyday goods like soybeans, cars, and tech products. Soybean prices dropped 3.7%. You think that's nothing? That's a huge blow to farmers already struggling under Trump's economic chaos. This is what happens when you have an administration that thinks tariffs are just a game. No plan, no foresight, just knee-jerk reactions to every problem. And let's talk about the human cost. Trump claims he's helping Americans, but the truth is these tariffs are hurting working people the most. Farmers are going bankrupt, tech companies are facing supply chain issues, and small businesses are crumbling under the pressure. Meanwhile, Trump's wealthy buddies get tax breaks and bailouts. It's infuriating. I get it. There are real issues with the trade imbalance. But throwing tariffs at China isn't the solution. This trade war isn't just affecting China, it's wrecking our economy, driving up inflation, and hurting regular Americans who have to pay higher prices for basic goods. This isn't some victory, it's a disaster.
Another bombshell, tariff bombshell, hit the market this morning. Thursday, stocks had their worst day since the pandemic lockdown in March 2020. Overnight, prices fell a little bit more. And then, at around 6 a.m. Eastern, Beijing announced its response to the tariffs that President Trump had imposed on them. China will put a 34% hit on all products coming from America. The market tumbled again. Here's where we are now. Dow's off 1,000, Nasdaq's down 458. For context, consider this. In 2023 and 2024, stocks went up roughly 20% in both years. So far in 25, we're down roughly 20%. So the bull market gains have not been entirely wiped out. Okay, but this is still white-knuckle time. The economy is slowing and will probably slow further as the tariffs bite. Inflation remains at around the 3% level and may go up from there if tariffs are passed along to consumers. In other words, stagflation. It's a nasty word, but it is a possibility. Then think of profits, the baseline for stock prices. Chief financial officers are already marking down their expectations. That's never good for stocks. Consider the wealth effect. The rich take a hit when the market sells off. When you look at your diminished 401k, are you going to spend as freely as you did? If top earners cut spending, the whole economy slows. And what happens if some of our trading partners, other trading partners, join China in imposing stiff tariffs? A spreading trade war would not be good.
Look, experts are already warning that this trade war could push us into a global recession. The Federal Reserve is concerned, global supply chains are being strained, and the very businesses Trump claims to be helping are facing mass layoffs and losses. This isn't winning. And what's Trump doing? He's out there pretending like all of this is some grand strategy, trying to spin it as a win for America. But let's be clear, it's just more of the same. He doesn't have a real solution. He's just making everything worse for everyone but the billionaires. We need someone who understands the global economy and works toward building strong, sustainable partnerships, not someone who's playing reckless games with tariffs with no plan for the aftermath.
Is that the president is saying on True Social, he just had a very productive call with the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam on the tariffs, saying that this man told him that Vietnam wants to cut their tariffs down to zero if they are able to make an agreement with the U.S. Trump says that he replied by thanking him on behalf of the U.S. and saying he looked forward to a meeting in the near future. So no definite moves happening there, but it does show that the president is taking calls. This is the first confirmation we have that the president has spoken to another world leader since these tariffs were put in place. This is while he's down in Florida. They say this call has been happening. And it also suggests, Sarah, that in a shift from what we were hearing from administration officials yesterday, this could be a negotiation for this administration. They could be open to deals now, despite what we were hearing at first. And remember, Vietnam got one of the highest tariff rates on Wednesday at 46%. Also a country that's a big deal when it comes to transshipment out of China, trying to avoid the Chinese tariffs. A lot of companies have gone to Vietnam. So very interesting there if we could get a deal or see a deal with the Vietnamese.
Trump's tariffs and the recent situation with Vietnam is an absolute mess. So here's the deal. Trump has been using these reciprocal tariffs, which sounds great in theory, right? He says it's all about fairness, about making other countries pay what the US pays. But when you dig deeper, and I mean way deeper, this whole thing falls apart faster than a house of cards in a tornado. For those of you who haven't been following, Vietnam recently proposed slashing its tariffs down to zero in a call with Trump. They're trying to work something out after the US slapped a huge 46% tariff on Vietnamese goods. And get this, Vietnam, a developing country, already has a 7% tariff in place. So even if both countries completely eliminate tariffs, it's not going to fix the root issue. What Trump doesn't seem to understand, or maybe just doesn't care about, is the trade deficit. The US buys more from Vietnam than they buy from us. Simple as that. Even if Vietnam drops its tariffs to zero, and spoiler alert, they'll probably never fully do that anyway, the trade deficit isn't going anywhere. In fact, it could even increase. Why? Because the US can't compete with Vietnam's ridiculously low production costs. Let's face it, folks, American manufacturers can't keep up with what Vietnam offers in terms of cheap labor and efficiency. The only thing that would happen if tariffs were zeroed out is that American companies would get more cheap goods from Vietnam, and not a single job would come back to the US. Honestly, I'm starting to think my pet goldfish could understand this better than Trump. I mean, it's basic economics. You can't outcompete a country that's paying people next to nothing. Come on, Trump. You gotta know this by now. You can slap all the tariffs you want, but if you're not addressing the real issue of production costs, it's just like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. So yeah, Trump's tariffs are more of a spectacle than a solution. He's targeting the wrong thing. Again, Vietnam isn't going to fix the trade deficit, and just because they drop tariffs to zero doesn't mean the US is magically going to start producing at the same rate they are. At the end of the day, the real problem here is about competing in a global market, and tariffs just aren't going to solve that. So let's be real here. It's time for Trump and his administration to wake up and get with the program. This America First strategy is all well and good, but it's not working. The stock market is in free fall today, down $2 trillion. Yeah, you heard that right. But don't worry, Trump is on the golf course swinging like it's just another beautiful day in paradise. You know, while the rest of us are probably considering how to hide our 401ks under the mattress, he's out there enjoying life, pretending like everything is peachy keen. Now imagine this. Picture Trump hitting that perfect swing with the wind in his hair and a nice comfy polo on, while the market crashes harder than my hopes and dreams after high school. The Dow is plummeting, and Trump is out here having the time of his life because, you know, why not? Who needs to worry about the economy when you've got a 9-iron in your hand, right? Honestly, at this point, Trump could be playing golf, eating a burger, and sipping a Diet Coke while the whole country crumbles, and he'd still be grinning from ear to ear like, what recession? I can just imagine the scene. The stock market's down $2 trillion, and Trump's out there talking to his caddy. So, what's the stock market up to? Oh, it's crashing. Sounds like a great time to hit another birdie. Meanwhile, back in reality, we're over here checking our bank accounts like, oh no, my retirement is looking more like a part-time job at Walmart. Now, we all know Trump loves his golf, but I gotta say, this is peak everything's fine energy. The stock market's a mess, but Trump's like, I'm just here for a good time. I mean, if it were anyone else, they'd be in crisis mode, giving speeches, trying to calm the nation down. But nope, not Trump. He's probably hitting that perfect putt while the US economy is teeing off into a disaster. Anyway, what do you think? Should Trump be taking this crisis more seriously? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell.